What's going on, everybody? What's happening? Happy Thanksgiving to our American friends south of the border. No, we Canadians do not celebrate Thanksgiving today. Our Thanksgiving is the second Monday in October. Is it the second Monday? I think it's the second Monday. But I hope you're having a nice start to your Thanksgiving day today. It is Thursday, November the 25th, 2021, 11:06 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Dave McRae, coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. And we're talking Ghostbusters Afterlife today. Yes, Ghostbusters Afterlife today. I saw this movie last night in the IMAX with my girlfriend, and this was crazy. I know. You like this, don't you? I mean, we're talking Ghostbusters, so why not throw on some googly weird shit over the eyes? You know what I'm saying? Too bad there's only 34 people watching to see that. They'll have to watch after the fact. They'll be watching after the fact. Don't worry, I won't leave these on for the whole show. Although that would be kind of funny. That would be kind of funny. People would tune it in, they're seeing... Kind of reminds me of Christopher Lloyd from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Do you remember this voice, Andy? Anyway, so, yes, Ghostbusters Afterlife. I saw it last night. Let me take these suckers off. Woo! I saw it last night in the IMAX with my girlfriend. And here's the funny thing. So, I bought tickets. We were supposed to see it last week, but then something came up. We couldn't see it. So I bought tickets, online to a theater close to us here. IMAX showing 4:30 p.m. on a Wednesday. Now, when I purchased the tickets online, I'm sure it's like this in the States. Maybe it's not, but I'm sure it is. You know, they show you, you get to pick your seats for IMAX, right? It's assigned seating in IMAX. So they showed the floor plan, the seating plan, and no seats were taken. I'm like, oh, well, that's probably because it's 9 o'clock in the morning, right? I mean, by the time 4:30 rolls around, there's going to be a few people in there, surely. So anyways, I chose 2 seats, you know, dead center, like row H, like perfect, right? Like perfect. That's where you want to sit when you watch a movie, you know? So that's what I chose. So, you know, we went on with our day and we had errands to run and things to do and people to see. And then we head over to the theater around 4 o'clock and we walk in and as we go into the IMAX, there's nobody there. Literally, we had an IMAX theater to ourselves for I'm not making this up. Like, that's not hyperbole. I don't mean that. No, there was like 1 or 2. No, there was literally nobody in the theater. Literally, in the purest sense of the word, there was nobody in the theater but myself and my girlfriend for the entire movie. We stayed for the credits because obviously there's a mid-credit scene and an end credit scene. And we sat through all that. No usher came in. Nothing. It was like our own private screening, just the two of us. It was amazing. Why? I don't know. I looked at the box office numbers for Ghostbusters Afterlife here in Canada, and it's doing fine. It just, for whatever reason, 4:30 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon at this particular theater anyway, which is not like it's a small theater. It was huge. It's huge. Nobody. Nobody. Crazy. But it was great. It was great. We loved it. So let me put up the old spoiler thing here, because you cannot talk about this kind of stuff without talking about spoilers. You just can't. So, excuse me. A little excited here. So I put a video up on my channel a couple of days ago talking about nostalgia and realistic expectations as it relates to Ghostbusters Afterlife. And at that time, I had not seen the movie. And I said to you, I know everything I'm saying in this video, that video, will stand after I see the movie. I know myself really well. And there were some people that were like, well, Dave, you know, you shouldn't really... No. Listen, I've been doing this a long time. Okay. And I've been in this business a long time. And I know I have a pretty good gauge of, you know, when I look at trailers and promos and I talk to people who've seen it and listen to it, I have a pretty good idea whether I'm going to like something or not. You know, that's why most horror movies that are released, I don't bother going to see, because I'm like, yeah, it looks like crap. And somebody's like, well, no, you got to go. I'm not, no, it's trash. I'll tell you right now, it's trash. So then they go see it and they come back and they're like, yeah, it was trash. I'm like, yeah, see, I told you it was trash. Anyway, there's people watching going, he's such a douche. Okay, so, but I was really excited to watch this movie. I'm a big fan of Ghostbusters, obviously. I'm a big fan of the original 1984. I like the sequel from 1989. I think it's grown on me more over the years, but in my opinion, it's not as strong or not nearly as good as the original from 84. But it's fine. Like, for a sequel, it's fine. You know, it's always fun to revisit these characters. And of course, for many, many, many years, we just never got a sequel. And then we got the reboot in 2016, which I have to be honest with you, I actually kind of liked. I thought it was fine. I mean, I didn't like it as much as the original, of course, but I didn't think it was the dumpster fire that everybody said it was. I think there's just a lot of people out there that just like to complain and it's virtue signaling and woke stuff. And listen, there's degree. It's not black and white. That does exist in this world for sure, and maybe it exists a little bit in that movie. But I like to give credit where credit is due, and it was a competently made, entertaining movie with 4 talented women. Like, I mean, I thought it was. I didn't think it was. Well, this is done. No, I didn't think that at all. Whatever the hell that was supposed to be. So, but no, did I like it as no, of course it was, no. So then they make Ghostbusters Afterlife. Supposed to come out last year, pandemic delayed it. Here we are. I was excited to see it. I was privy to certain information from people that I know who had seen it a few months ago. And everything I hear, everything I heard by all accounts, I was really going to enjoy it. I loved it. I thought this movie was fantastic. I loved everything about it. One of the complaints that I did see from some people, nostalgia and fan service aside, which we're going to talk about. I talked about it in my video that I uploaded a couple of days ago. We're going to talk about it again here because I need to hammer this home. Maybe I just need to vent. The other complaint that I saw, was that it took a while to get going. You know, the pace was a little slow. I think there's validity in that. I think that if there was one thing that I had to complain about, might be that it really did take its time. And maybe there were a few things that we could have axed to speed it up a little bit. I think it's over 2 hours. You know, maybe this would have been a better paced feel movie if it was maybe an hour and 40 minutes or something. I don't know. I was never bored, but I did notice the pace. Oh, we're taking our time. But I think it's justified to a degree as well. And I'll talk about that in a second. But I really enjoyed this movie. And everybody is correct that McKenna Grace steals the show. It's her film, absolutely. I think that's somewhere where maybe it would have been better if, you know, and this is no disrespect to Finn Wolfhard, but I don't know if he was necessarily necessary in this movie. I wonder if he's there because, well, he's Canadian. It was shot in Canada. It was directed by Jason Reitman. They're Canadian-American. Slovak, actually, I think. Reitman might be, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, you know, Dan Aykroyd's Canadian, Rick Moranis is Canadian. You know, I mean, there's a big Canadian angle to the Ghostbusters franchise, okay? So, you know, and he's popular with Stranger Things and people recognize him. Like, I wonder if there wasn't a bit of a marketing thing around him, because his character, although he's a talented young kid, his character, his story with the girl and the whole thing, you know, you might have been able to just kind of axe that all together. I don't know if it was necessary to have that. You know, it fills it. It develops his character a bit more, and I was never bored through it. But I wonder if maybe if we had just made it about, is it Phoebe? I think it is. Made it about her and her mom, and maybe she meets this kid or whatever. And then I understand, how do you fix the, the Ecto-1 and how do you get that going? Because obviously you need a little older of a kid to make that more believable. I get all that. But certainly there were a few things in the pacing that I thought, yeah, I can see what people are talking about. Totally understand what people are talking about. I wouldn't say the film has pacing issues. I think that's a completely different thing to say the film has pacing issues. But I certainly agree that it is a slow burn, and it does take its time. It definitely takes its time. But again, I think there's a very important reason for that. And that reason is that this is a movie that is really, I believe the subtitle on one of the posters was something like, what was it? Discover the past, prepare for the future, or something like that. And let me just see if I can bring this up. Sorry about this, guys. I should have had this prepared. Ghostbusters, Afterlife posters. Let me just see here. There was something, even the chat room might even be able to tell me. But there was something, where is it here? Hang on. There, here it is. It should be here. Oh yes, it's Discover the Past, Save the Future. Discover the Past, Save the Future. That's what it is. So, in a film where you are discovering the past, right? There's a lot that Jason Reitman had to get in here. There's a lot that he had to, one of the things, I'm just going to jump right into it because I can't talk about the rest of the movie without talking about this because it's so important. And it relates back to my previous video. Listen, if you're over 40 like me, okay, and you grew up through the 1980s as a young boy or a teenager or what have you, and you're a big fan of Ghostbusters, obviously this movie's going to hit you in a different way than it's going to hit somebody who's a casual viewer, who's never seen the movies. Of course, it makes logical sense, right? When you play into the nostalgia and fan service, that's always going to hit those that have an emotional attachment to the past, to the previous films. Because, there's a measuring stick there. It's not going to hit everybody the same way, nor is it intended to hit everybody the same way. So, it's understandable why some people may not feel the same way about it as I do or as others do. But I do believe that it is true that if you are a huge fan of the original, they've done a tremendous job here at connecting the dots, and it was no easy task. Harold Ramis, who played Egon, we know died a few years ago, 2014, I think it was, somewhere around there. And, he was a big part of the original Ghostbusters, but not just as Egon, as a writer, right? He was a big part of the creative input of that movie. So it's not like he was just an actor that they were paying tribute to. They were paying tribute to one of the creative leads, one of the creative powerhouses of not just Ghostbusters in 1984, of 1980s comedy. I mean, Harold Ramis directed Chevy Chase in Vacation. He directed Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, right? You know what I mean? He's directed a ton of other stuff too. He was in Stripes, and his comedic, his footprint, his fingerprints on especially 70s, 80s, early 90s comedy is huge. He's a comedy legend, at the end of the day. Although it might seem strange because he hasn't acted in a lot of movies, his writing, producing, directing, his creative input on other films and things like that, he's a comedy legend. And so they were paying tribute to that as well. Not just Egon Spengler, which is what they were doing, but they were paying tribute to a guy who, if it wasn't for him, Ghostbusters may or may not have existed. Or at least not in this way. And a lot of people don't understand that. They don't realize who Harold Ramis really is, because I don't know if he's really a household name like Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, because they're actors first and foremost, and they're out there in the pop culture zeitgeist because they have so many movies too. Harold Ramis, if you're a movie fan or if you're a fan of comedy, you probably know the name, but not in general, right? So he's a legend. And they were paying tribute to that as well. And I thought they did a tremendous job. They did what The Force Awakens did. And you could make an argument to say that they did it better. But they had to go back to go forward. This is what people don't understand, is that I truly believe in this formula, that when you have a franchise like Star Wars in 2014, that was, and I don't give a fuck what people say. Excuse my language to those of you that maybe don't like when I swear, but I don't give a fuck, okay? For those who try to backpedal and say, no, that's not true. No, listen, the Star Wars prequels were loathed, not by everybody, but there was a general consensus that George Lucas ruined your childhood. Remember that? Right? That wasn't something that was being said in the 80s or the 90s. That was something that was said after, Attack of the Clones and The Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. Yes, it has its fans, but the Star Wars prequels were loathed. Star Wars was dead. I don't mean that there were no books or comics. I just mean in terms of the films, and, it was dead. It was dead. And Bob Iger even came out, and this is fact. Yeah, maybe you don't like it. Maybe you don't agree with it. Maybe you don't think it's necessary, but it wasn't done arbitrarily. It was done for a very specific reason. And Bob Iger even said, we went back to go forward. We needed to reset. We needed to cleanse the palate. We needed to deliver something that was familiar, that people could recognize and have fun with. And Star Wars fans, although some didn't like The Force Awakens, there wasn't the vitriol until after The Last Jedi. Sure, you had people that were like, I think The Force Awakens played it too safe. It was too much fan service. It was too much. Okay, sure. But the vitriol and the toxicity, didn't happen until after The Last Jedi, and you fucking know it. It was that movie that sank everything, because it was like, what is going on here? You gave us this, and then all of a sudden Rian Johnson's going, I don't think so, and went over. It was incompetence. It was just ridiculous. I think Ghostbusters Afterlife is doing sort of this, or has done the same thing, right? You got Ghostbusters 16. They know, even though I thought it wasn't as bad as everybody, thought it was a movie, that nobody liked, essentially, right? They needed a palate cleanse. They needed to deliver something that was familiar, that was nostalgic, that could get the fans back on board, that could just reset the clock before moving forward. Now, if they do go forward into a next installment, that is where the real test is going to be. Because you cannot rely on fan service and nostalgia indefinitely. You have to progress the narrative. And now that they've gotten this Harold Ramis story, this Egon Spengler story out of the way, which is essentially what this is, paying tribute, bringing back the old guys, learning about his granddaughter and, the discovery of this, and bringing back Gozer and Zool and like all that shit, right? Now that they've done that, and they've gotten it out of the way, if they move on, they can't do this again. They can't bring back what's-his-face from part 2 or have the Statue of Liberty walking down. You can't do that. You can't do that, right? You can't do that. But you also can't do a complete 180 and like what The Last Jedi did and completely negate everything that happened in the previous movie and be avant-garde for the sake of being avant-garde. You can't do that either. So I knew what this was going to be, and I thought it was great. It's exactly what it needed to be. It's exactly what a Ghostbusters 3 needed to be. And for those of you that are complaining about the amount of fan service, listen, if this was Ghostbusters 3 in 1991, if a Ghostbusters 3 came out in 1991 and they had brought back Gozer, I'd be right there with you. I'd be thinking, what the fuck are you doing? We just saw Gozer like 6 or 7 years ago. Why are you bringing her back or him back or it back or whatever? This doesn't make any sense. You should be telling a completely new story, because we're still in that time frame that it's still new. It's still current, right? It's not that far removed from 1984. But when you're making a direct sequel that's 32 years past its expiry date, what do you expect? You're not going to have a bunch of 70-year-old fat guys running around in Ghostbuster costumes for 2 hours. It's not going to happen, folks. It's over. Like I said in my other video, it's done. It's over. Look in the mirror. You're 45 and you got gray hair. Check your pubes. I'm just saying. It's over. You know, this is, and to be honest with you, doing a bit of research, I don't even know if we had gotten a Ghostbusters 3 in the 90s, whether we would have gotten what we would have wanted. Because by all accounts of my understanding, Dan Aykroyd was moving forward with a Ghostbusters 3 in the 90s that may not have even had them in it, or them in it in cameos. Chris Farley was almost, brought on board. Will Smith was going to come on board as a Ghostbuster. Like, they were going to expand it and bring on new blood, and Bill Murray had no interest, largely probably because he just didn't want to do it again, and largely probably because of his falling out with Harold Ramis. Those of you that don't know, they had a big falling out after Groundhog Day. So who knows if we would have even gotten the Ghostbusters 3 in the 90s that we would have wanted, which was what? Those four guys together again. We might not have even gotten that if there was a 3 in 1996. So maybe the fact that we waited so long, and the fact that we're able to get well, I guess kind of in some ways, but the fact that we were able to get Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson dressed in a Ghostbuster costume shooting their proton packs in this new movie that came out, we may not have gotten that 30 years ago. That's actually possible. There were so many ideas, different directions that they were wanting to go in. So, as ironic as it sounds, maybe this 32-year gap actually was good because we were able to bring them back. Enough time had passed, and now we're in this era of nostalgia that it's like it's cool again. Do you know what I mean? So I'm telling you, man, I don't know who these people are. I assume they're not Ghostbusters fans, or they're casual fans. But we need to understand that when you make sequels that are 30 years past their due date, especially in franchises that have a history of being, or eventually, it was really good, and then it kind of, you know what I'm saying? Largely the studios, what they want to do is they want to go back to go forward. Not all the way back, but they just want to take a step back, recalibrate, cleanse the palate, introduce some familiar stuff, and just to get people, but remember this? Yeah, it's supposed to be like that. It's all intentional. You may not like it because maybe you're a casual fan, or maybe you're one of these people that thinks they can just go on and just keep going. It's like, nah, not necessarily. Maybe, but I think the creative choice to go back and tell a familiar story with lots of nostalgia with the old guys was the right thing to do. And tell a beautiful story about Egon. Oh my God, the way they handled Egon Spengler, holy shit. First of all, the movie opens with that great, chase in the truck, and they have an actor that you don't really see him, but you kind of know it's Egon, and he runs to his house in the country there. By the way, it was all shot up here in Alberta. Some of it might have been shot in LA on a soundstage, or it might have been all in Alberta, maybe Alberta, Vancouver. But anyway, so and whoever they got looked like at the beginning with the profile shot of him as he's holding out the trap and it was just brilliantly done. So well done. I saw somebody online, I forget who it was, said Ghostbusters Afterlife is like if Steven Spielberg made a Ghostbusters movie. And they're bang on, 100%. It's so much fun. Again, but it's fun maybe because I was born in 1979. I'm 42 years old, and I grew up with the Ghostbusters, and I was a Ghostbusters fan, and I had the toys, and I watched the cartoon before school, and, or maybe it was after school. I can't remember. But, I was a fan, right? So naturally, it's going to hit me on a level that may not hit you. You may watch and go, yeah, it's fine. I don't really say the big deal. I get it, but think of something in your life that is the same as this. If they brought it back, you'd be like, whoa! That's what's happening here with all us 40-year-old fanboys. It's crazy, right? It's fun. It's fun to see it. And I thought Paul Rudd was great. Carrie Coon, is that her name? I thought she was fine. I'm glad she had a bit of a redemption arc there at the end because she was a terrible mom. Like, I'm just going to say. And thank goodness it was her father, Egon, that had all those photos of her on the wall in the basement, because if that wasn't her father, that'd be kind of creepy. I'm just saying, like, what the hell is it? Obviously, it's her dad, right? Love the way they utilized Egon as well. And I got to admit, it didn't dawn on me at first that I think I noticed it when the chess pieces started moving. There was one point where I realized that the ghost that was communicating with McKenna Grace's character was Egon, was her grandfather. And it didn't dawn on me at first. It was like 5 or 10 minutes after this whole thing. I was like, not after the movie, but after they started sort of establishing that, I was like, oh, and I turned to my girlfriend. I'm like, oh, that's totally Egon's ghost. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, right. Duh. That was so well done. And the way that the lamp would move, as if it's showing them what to do. It was so well done. You felt Harold Ramis and Egon there, his presence there so much, even though he wasn't there. And Muncher, the new Slimer, so to speak, was really fun. And I thought the kid that played Podcast was, it was good. He was really good. Everybody was good. The mom and Finn Wolfhard, yeah, they were probably the least developed. There might have been something we might have been able to do with Finn, or maybe just Axe's character altogether. Perhaps. Maybe we don't really need him. Although I do understand that he serves a purpose with driving the car and all that kind of stuff. I get all that. But there was some of his stuff that felt sort of flat. A little bit. A little kind of, let's get back to the other stuff. But there wasn't anything about the movie that was boring or terrible, or these are nitpicks, right? These are just minor little things, that you can nitpick about any movie. Do you know what I mean? Overall, I thought the film was fantastic and just exactly what it needed to be. And I walked out of the theater feeling exactly how I told you I was going to feel in the video that I uploaded talking about nostalgia and all that a couple of days ago. I knew I was going to feel that way. I'm not lying to you. I knew I was going to feel that way based on everything I saw, everything I heard. And although I didn't shed a tear outright, like completely outright, there was probably about at least half a dozen times, maybe more, where I felt that lump in my throat, big lump in my throat. And it would happen over things that, like over like a musical cue or something. I'm like, oh, fuck, that's that music. You know what I mean? Or just over things like when we first saw Dan Aykroyd on screen, when the phone rang and we saw Dan Aykroyd, I got it. I was like, and I'm like, hold it together. You know what I mean? For sure. But that's who it's for. If you're a casual fan or if you're 22 years old, you probably have no idea who the fuck Dan Aykroyd is. I'm not trying to sound patronizing. I just, it's true, right? It's like you don't have that, but it's so good. It was so well done. And Dan Aykroyd's speech when he's talking to, is it Phoebe? Is that her name? It's Phoebe, right? I think that's her name. When he's talking to her on the phone, and of course, it's a little exposition-y, but it's done so well. And Dan Aykroyd he knows the material and he knows the mythology of Ghostbusters so well because it's his brainchild. It came from him. Now, obviously, Ivan Reitman and Harold Ramis polished the original script back in the early '80s to kind of get it down to something a little more shooter budget friendly, perhaps. But Ghostbusters is essentially the heart and the brainchild of Dan Aykroyd. And so to see him on screen and to see him, sure, he's delivering exposition to like a 12-year-old on the phone, but the way he does it is like, because he knows the material and the characters so well, it just like, I wouldn't be surprised if he ad-libbed some of that. Like if he knew the basic sort of outline of what they wanted him to say, and he's like, okay, as long as I get that, okay. You know what I mean? It wouldn't surprise me because he knows the material, he knows the mythology, and he just knows it so well. I thought that was a lot of fun. I really liked when the sheriff, it's Phoebe, right? When she's like, I want to make a phone call. And then, the sheriff's like, who are you going to call? It's like, that was fun. My girlfriend liked that part too. That was fun, and I love the fact that, because I knew that Sigourney Weaver was in this movie. But we didn't see her. I thought maybe she was going to show up at the end as well as with a proton pack. That's what I thought. And she was going to be shooting the guy. I thought that. And she was like getting her revenge on Gozer or something. That might have been kind of cool. Maybe a little too much. But I was like, I was prepared for it. And I totally would have, I would have been fine with it. But of course, the movie ends and you're like, where the hell is Sigourney Weaver? And then they show her name in the credits. I'm like, oh, I bet you they're going to, instantaneously I went, I bet you they're going to cut here. I bet you this is where it's going to come in. Because everyone who stayed that long to watch the credits, to listen to the music, you see her name and you're like, did I miss her? She wasn't in the movie. And then of course they cut to the mid-credit scene, which is a play on the beginning of the original Ghostbusters, when Peter Venkman is holding up those cards to try and get the students to guess what the image is, right? And that's what's happening. Sigourney Weaver is holding up the card, doing it to Bill Murray. And it was just a cute little scene. It lasted maybe, 2 minutes maybe. It was a cute scene. Really, really well done. Really cool to see her. And I'm telling you, she looks fantastic. I haven't formally met Sigourney Weaver, but she was at the Voice Arts Awards a few years ago that I was at. We were on the red carpet together, and she had this beautiful green dress on, and she looks just as radiant in person as she does in that film and on film. She looks tremendous for her age. Stunning. So I can tell you firsthand, she looks that good in person. She's amazing. And so that was cool. That was cool to see. And then of course the end credit scene, which really sets it up for something. And I love that they showed this scene clearly from the 1984 movie with Janine and Egon, but it was a deleted scene. I'm hearing that it was a deleted scene. And I said that to my girlfriend. I was like, oh, this has to be a deleted scene because this wasn't in the 84 film. But that's so smart, right? And really, really, really cool. I loved seeing that. I love the transition back into, present day. Annie Potts was great. I love it. She looks great too. She's got to be 70 at least. She looks stunning. She was great. Another Annie, I think it was Annie Potts in that movie with John Candy, Who's Harry Crumb? I think that was her in that movie. She was fucking hilarious in that movie. I love Annie Potts. She was great. Definitely missed Rick Moranis. It would have been so cool to have Rick Moranis in that film. That would have been so cool. But I understand, I don't think he wanted to come back. And I also think it was because he's also doing something with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, if I'm not mistaken. It's too bad I don't know where you would have fit him in. I mean, maybe he was sitting beside Dana, shocking Bill Murray, maybe during the mid-credit scene, or I don't know where you would have fit him in. I don't know where the plan was to fit him in, because obviously they reached out to him and they wanted him to come back. But I'm not so sure where that would have been, right? Because the movie's pretty, I'm not sure where they would have had him. But anyway, definitely miss seeing him. But man, it is. It's Ghostbusters 3. But it's Ghostbusters 3 32 years later. And what else did I like? Oh yeah, the end credit scene. That's what I was talking about. Love that it revolved around Winston. I love that they gave him that moment, because Winston's always, we have to remember that, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Harold Ramis, come from that comedic background. You got Saturday Night Live alum there. You got Harold Ramis, who was just fresh off of directing Vacation with Chevy Chase, and of course was in Stripes, and they're comedic legends. And then you have Ernie Hudson, who was brought on board in the original 84 film, and he's not, I wouldn't say he's a comedic legend, and he's certainly not, his career never really took off after that. He had a decent character actor sort of career, and he's done well for himself. But certainly it didn't, propel him into the stratosphere like I think he had hoped it would. But he's always been the fourth Ghostbuster, right? Because 1984 started with the three of them. And for a large portion of that movie, dare I say, maybe almost half of that first film is just Egon, Peter, and Ray. Even when they fight Slimer in the hotel, Winston's not even there yet. He's not even a Ghostbuster yet. So, he eventually comes on board because they're just having there's way too many calls. They need extra help, right? And that's where he comes in. But he's always been that Ghostbuster, even though he's got a lot more love over the years. And ironically, I think a lot of people give him a lot more love because he's sort of that fourth wheel, if you know what I mean. And, but it's kind of cool because he is kind of the cool kind of guy. And he's that, you know what I mean? Like he's getting a lot more love. But anyway, the point is, I love the fact that they gave him that moment to shine in the end credit scene. It's not, you know, an end credit scene with Aykroyd or Venkman. It's an end credit scene with Winston and how he bought the Ecto-1 and it looks like he bought the fire hall again. It's like, what is he doing? You know, he's got the tools and he's got the talent, right? He's got the tools and he's got the talent. It's like, oh, what's he doing? They're setting it up for the whatever he's, and maybe it's going to turn into that thing that they always talked about, that even Dan Aykroyd talked about in the 90s, about setting up multiple stations like a firehouse or a police, like, you know, where they have multiple ghost busting operations around the city. Maybe this is the beginning of that. Maybe it is, you know, who knows, you know, and it's going to all be started from Winston Zeddemore, who had the money, you know, to be able to back it all. You know what I mean? Who knows? I don't know. But I love that they gave him that moment to shine. They set it up definitely. But if they never made another film, it totally works the same. Totally works the same. Really, really well done. I like that. And I love of course, listen, the return of the original duo. You know, I mean, so well done. Really cool. Gozer looked great. I didn't even know that was Olivia Wilde. Did you guys know that Gozer was Olivia Wilde? Fuck, man. I didn't even know that. Holy shit. Looked great. It looked like Gozer from 1984. Obviously a bit different, but almost like a kind of like an updated version of what Gozer might look like now and all that kind of stuff. Thought that was really cool. You know, the gatekeeper and the keymaster. Yeah, I know we've done it before. I get that. But if you're going to bring back Gozer, this is part of the mythology. This is part of the story, right? So naturally, this is probably what Gozer is going to try and do, you know, and yeah, it's fan service. I get all that. Paul Rudd, as I said, was great. Love the Walmart plug. Obviously, it's just a big ad for Walmart, but nonetheless, it was well done. The little tiny State Puff marshmallow was really cool. Now they're making some, like, they're essentially killing each other. I thought that was hilarious. I love the fact that the demon dogs were a hybrid of CGI and practical effects. And that is true. That's not a guess. I actually know that's actually been confirmed, that they actually made like practical demon dogs. And you can tell when it's being used, and it's fucking great. I love it. Now, obviously, when it's bursting through the Walmart door and all that obvious, and it's running down the street or whatever, or in, you know, the store, yeah, that's CGI, obviously. But when it's still and it's like sitting on the hood of the car, or it's just sitting there eating a bag of dog food or whatever, which is great. I love it. That's practical, and it's so well done, or a mixture of both. It's so well done. I love that. And what else? I mean, there really isn't anything in this movie I don't like. I get what people are saying. Yeah, there's a lot of fan service. There's a lot of, you know, nostalgia. Yes. And yes, it takes its time to get into it. But like, I just don't know where people's expectations are. I don't know what you expect. What do you want? It's 30 years past its due date. It's a tribute film. It's a swan song. It's a reunion tour. You know, it's a one final time. What do you want? If you want the Ghostbusters 3 that's 1991, guys. That's not going to happen. It can't happen today. And I agree with that creative decision to go back, to go forward. You don't go all the way back, but you take a few steps back to get the fan base back on board. It's smart marketing. You don't realize this. We're being manipulated all the time, folks. This is the entertainment industry. This is show business. They know what they're doing. They know how to poke and prod your heartstrings, you know, of course. And that gets you on board. Now, for those of you that love the movie, are you excited for a part 2 now? Oh, yeah. Then it worked, right? It worked. But if it would have been too much of a risk to do something completely different with fan service here or there, but nothing really. It would have been too much of a risk. They needed to deliver something familiar. That's what they needed to do. And The Force Awakens was a $2 billion movie. They did it right. It was just The Last Jedi that fucked it up, in my opinion. So if they go on with the next Ghostbusters, they got to really make sure that they're they've got a good story and that they're really progressing and they're not retconning or completely negating anything that happened before just to move forward. Anyway, yeah, the return of the original three. God, sorry, I'm all over the place here. Again, I'm not a movie reviewer, guys. I'm just talking about what I loved. But as soon as you heard Venkman's voice, like, hey, did you miss us or whatever? Oh my God. Oh yeah. Lump in the throat, in the feels. It's like, holy shit, there they are. They look ancient, but whatever. Ernie Hudson is 75. I mean, he's probably 73 or 4 when they shot that part, but he's 75. The dude looks 60. He looks incredible. He's like 3 or 4 years older than the other two. He looks magnificent. He should be People Magazine's sexiest man alive as far as I'm concerned. 100%. The dude is fucking amazing. He's such a handsome man. He's 75. Incredible. But I loved all that, right? And I love the moment where like, are you a god? And then he's like, oh, come on, Ray, say it. You know what to say. Like, come on. It was so good. Is it fan service? Yes! Yes, that's the point. And it's great. It's familiar cake. It's great cake. It's great pizza, but it tastes so yes, you've had it before. Yes, you've had it 1,000 times, but every time you have it, it's fucking good. And they served it up and they made no apologies for it. And it was great. Of course, this time we see him say, yes, and it was great. That full circle moment was really a lot of fun. And then, I mean, listen, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, of course, how they handled Egon. And that moment when they're having trouble with Gozer and they got the proton packs out, and then all of a sudden there's this other pack that shoots from the back, this other beam that shoots from the back, and you look over and it's McKenna Grace and she's there, and little 12-year-old, right? She's there and she's doing this. And I remember thinking, really? I remember thinking, I think, but then of course the camera pivots and we see this, Force Ghost version for all intents and purposes of Egon. And he's actually with her, holding on to the proton pack, holding on to the handle, shooting the beam, helping her. And then there's this moment where you see the four of them standing side by side, and it's like, oh, it's so well done. And listen, I don't know if it's deep fake technology. It's probably a combination of both. Maybe a little bit of prosthetics on the actor, maybe a little bit of deep fake technology. They definitely would have had to have paid the Harold Ramis estate money because it looks exactly like Harold Ramis. It is Harold Ramis. Oh my God. Even my girlfriend turned to me and goes, holy shit, does that ever look like him? And I said, it's got to be deepfake, or at least part and part. Like, I'm not maybe just only, but there's got to be something, because holy shit, did it look like it was him. It was him. And to see the four of them there with Harold as like a Force ghost, fuck, dude. Like, I mean, yes. Yes, because you know what? We're never going to see it again. You're over 40. You're over 40. Look in the mirror. You're never going to see it again. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. That's the way to do it. And the way they're all kind of, looking over at him like, holy shit, like, and Bill Murray's like, oh, I figured you'd show up, that little sly kind of remark. And we know that, in real life, we know that Bill Murray and Harold Ramis, although they did make amends toward the end of Harold's life, it was really because Harold was dying. And, but they didn't talk. They had a feud for many, many years. Bill Murray's, look, he's a talented dude. He's a comedic legend. We can't take that away from him. But like Chevy Chase, who's also a comedic legend, he's been known to be incredibly difficult to work with. Dare I say it, even bipolar. He has incredible mood swings, and you can totally see it too. You can see it in interviews. You can see, there's sometimes where he's doing an interview where you're like, wow, that was incredibly coherent and insightful, but Bill Murray has, he's had a drinking problem too, as we know. And he was, although he's brilliant on screen, and when you say action, he's there and he's fucking amazing. It's the stuff that's off camera that is hard. So I thought maybe there was going to be a moment just between them, a symbolic moment just between them. And there was a little bit, like, I'm glad when they showed I don't know, like, although it's for the character, and I understand that in the universe, it's all about the character, seeing, you know, Peter Venkman tear up a little bit as he's looking at Carrie Coon's character hug her father, Egon, I'm glad we saw that. You know, I don't know. I like to think of it on a bit of a deeper level, you know, that it's not just about that. It's also about Harold. But, you know, who knows, right? That's just me. But it was so well done. Oh my God, it was well done. You know, this is really, as much as I like The Rise of Skywalker, and what I mean by that is, I don't think it's the greatest Star Wars movie of all time. I'm just saying, I should say that I like it better than The Last Jedi. It's what of course yes, The Rise of Skywalker should have been this, it should have been that, they should have done this, they should have done that. I agree with all that. But there's only so much they could have done because of the debacle of The Last Jedi, in my opinion. But there's one thing I wish they would have done, is at the end of that movie, instead of just the disembodied voices, they would have had, and I know there's a video on YouTube where they do that. They've CGI'd it in. But I would have, in the real movie, I would have had the Force ghosts of Luke and maybe even Leia and Yoda and whoever come in to help Rey in the same ways that Egon was helping Phoebe. It's Phoebe, right? It is. I'm pretty sure. I just saw it last night. I should know this. Totally. That I would have loved. This is what we should have had at the ending of The Rise of Skywalker. 100%. That, I mean, just the way they did that. Oh, he looks so much like him. Oh, it's so well done. And then of course the hug, and he goes off into the ether, into the stratosphere, you know, and that's it, you know, and it's like, wow, what a moment. And the cute little quips between you know, Ray and Podcast, and I like the quip between Bill Murray and hang on, let me see here. I'm blanking here. I just have to make sure I'm saying her name right. Yes, Phoebe. I was right. Okay. Yeah. Like, I mean, I like that little moment between Peter Venkman and Phoebe, and, you know, it was just so well done. But you could really see the emotional attachment in Winston Zedmore's, you know, he was really attached to that car. He really saw an opportunity. You know, it meant something to him. That emotional weight of that car that he hasn't seen in so many years meant something to him. The only thing I might have done, which would have been fun, is the guys just suddenly appear, and it's like, what? Did they come in a car or something? Like, how did they just appear? The only thing I would have done was, and maybe this would have been a little too much, I don't know, I would have shot it anyway because I think it would have been funny, is I would have had, and it would have been a moment. It would have been a nice moment for the three of them to see a kibitzing back and forth between the three of them. I would have totally had them, a scene where we see them driving up at night to the farmhouse in like a fucking Toyota Corolla. You know what I mean? And they got their packs on and everything, and they're driving up, and because, you know, they've come from wherever they've come from, and they drive up and they're like, I think this is it. Is this it? Of course this is it. Look at the fucking thing, whatever. And it's just funny because we're so used to seeing them in Ecto 1 that we see them roll up in like this Toyota Corolla, you know? I get it that if you saw them coming, it sort of defeats the surprise at the end, which is what they're going for. They're going for that, oh! I mean, if you didn't know they were going to be in it, we all knew they were going to be in it. So it kind of, you know what I mean? But I think that would have been a nice moment. Just not a long scene, just maybe, I don't know, 30 seconds or something, 40 seconds, maybe not even that. Just as, you know, we see this car coming, you know, down this country road with its headlights. It's, who's this? And, you know, they see, you know, all the shit happening on the farm. I was like, what the fuck? That must be it, you know? And then they're in the car, they're in the car, and we see them, and they're like, I think that must be what. And it just would have been funny. And it's funny because, like, they're in this little Toyota Corolla, you know what I mean? Or something. Or it just would have been funny. I think that would have been a fun scene to have. But like I said, I understand why they didn't show it, because, I mean, you want that immediate surprise. You want Peter Venkman's voice to be like, oh, was that fucking Peter Venkman? No. You know, anyway. It was so good. I am so happy with it. I cannot wait until it comes out on physical media. I am totally buying it and watching it again. I adored it. I adored it in the same ways I adored The Force Awakens. You know, in the sense of I was like, that was great. That was exactly what it needed to be at this stage of the game. At this stage of the game, it's exactly what it's a great palate cleanser. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. All right. Now we're ready. Rian Johnson just dropped the ball. He was like, all right, we're ready. Here you go. And he's like, great. And he's like fumbling it and he trips over and he's like, and everyone's like, ah. And then the other team picks it up and runs it in for a touchdown. You're like, ah. So this time, if they plan on going forward and the ball's been handed off, whoever's taking it, hold on to that fucking ball and don't lose it. Don't lose that ball. Oh. Anyway, I loved it. Hey, if you're watching after the fact, comment below and let me know your thoughts. What did you think of Ghostbusters Afterlife? I adored it. Ghostbusters 3, man. It's Ghostbusters 3. I mean, is it a perfect movie? Well, no, but I mean, that's like me having to say that is almost like me trying to just preface and go, well, hang on, you know, it's no perfect. It was great. If you are over 40 and I don't care if you're a man or a woman or something in between, I don't care. Whatever. If you are over 40 and you grew up through the 1980s as a Ghostbusters fan, you had the toys or you watched the cartoon or you dressed up as your favorite Ghostbuster for Halloween. I'm not saying you watch the movie every week. I'm just saying that, yeah, you really like the first Ghostbusters. Yeah, it's a classic. I love that movie. Oh, yeah, I love that movie. It's great. You're going to love this movie. 100%. 100%. And if you don't, then you lost your heart many years ago and you're jaded. I don't know what's happened to you, but this was great. All the musical callbacks and the performances and the effects were great, you know. And this is a movie that only cost, I say only, but you know, $75 million. Ghostbusters 2016, I think, was like $150 million. I will say that in Ghostbusters 2016, there were a lot more ghosts. A lot more beautiful effects. Like in Ghostbusters 2016, there were a lot of original sort of like, wow, you know, the only original ghost I would say that we got in this movie really was probably Muncher. And even he's a sort of a tribute to Slimer in some ways. Like it definitely does. It crosses familiar territory. Gozer, the demon dogs, 100%. The effects of the pink waveforms going through the city and stuff, or the all that stuff. Yeah, it's stuff. It's good. It's good. We needed this. The Ghostbusters franchise needed this. Ghostbusters fans needed this. I just hope that moving forward, you continue to understand that, guys, we can't go home again. You know, if for whatever reason, many years go by, 20, 25, 30 years go by and they didn't make a sequel to your favorite film of all time or one of your favorite childhood movies, something you have a lot of nostalgia for, it's going to be, you know, they're going to have to, you know, they got to do a few little, do you know what I mean? Like you're not going to see these old 70-year-old guys run around and trope. It's too late. It's too late. You know, it's just as the same as that we probably, I'm not saying that, I agree that I think we probably should have seen Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill on screen together. I definitely think we probably should have seen that. But, you know, to do an entire Star Wars movie around them, you know, listen, the Star Wars fan, yeah, okay. Listen, I would have sat through 2 hours of watching 70-year-old, you know, Peter Venkman and whoever running around in the streets with a protest. Of course I would have sat there. But you know, it's not just about us anymore, right? You know what I mean? There's a lot of balance happening. You know, it's too late for that. It's too late for that. So yes, whenever they're going to make a movie that is 30 years, a sequel to a beloved franchise that's 30 years past its due date, I'm just warning you. I'm just warning all of you out there who don't like this kind of thing. It will likely be full of nostalgia and fan service. Just be prepared. Especially if it's a franchise that has kind of gone off course and they need to go back. Now, some of you also might be thinking, but Dave, you didn't like Halloween 18 and there was fan service in there. Well, no, but see, that's different. I'm talking about continuity. I'm talking about character continuity and sort of aesthetic and style continuity, right? And there were certain things that they did not have in Halloween 18 that I think they should have had when you're making a direct sequel to the original film, right? So, that's a movie that, yes, had some fan service, but it didn't, some of the way it was shot, the way it looked, the way it felt, the way Michael was, it just missed for me. If they had got all that right, might have been a different ballgame. So it's really not the same thing. Anyways, let's go over to the chat room and see what you guys are talking about. Now that I've talked for pretty much an hour about my thoughts on Ghostbusters Afterlife. Again, if you're just joining me, I'm not a movie reviewer. I'm not going, beat for beat, plot for plot point. I'm not that's not who I am here. I'm just talking candidly about what I thought about the movie overall. I loved it. Loved the return, the cameos, the mid-credit scene, the end credit scene, the effects, the Ecto 1, the nostalgia, the fan service, and the way they handled Egon. Oh my goodness, the way they handled this character, not just at the end, which is like, oh my God, that's amazing. Not just at the end, but all the way through, you really felt his presence. And I thought it was tremendous. I thought it was so good. Now let me see. There was a super chat that came in from Justin Smyjohn Jr. Sends in $5, says, did you get the message about Scream 5? I sent it over Instagram DM last Saturday. No, I probably didn't. I get so many messages on my Instagram that I've turned notifications off for them. It's nothing personal. Okay. Listen, there are some people that have them on and that respond, and that's totally fine. For me, it's too much to keep up. It's not personal. Do not take it personally. The best way to reach out to me is through my Many Things Dave McRae Facebook page, and to keep it short. On Instagram, I was starting to get, and I kid you not, this is probably about a year ago, I was starting to get about 40 messages a day from people that would, and it's all kinds of stuff, but I was like, I can't. And then some people will get angry. You don't take your messages. You don't care about your fans. It's like, no, it's not that I don't care about my fans, or I don't care about my messages. It's that when you develop a bit of a following and people start reaching out to you, it's almost impossible to give everybody the same amount of attention, to respond to everybody, right? So that's why, but I've been very candid. I've been very open. I've been very honest with everybody here. And for those of you that have been following me for any length of time, I've always said this. If I don't get back to you, it's nothing personal, right? I don't know you. I don't hate you or anything. It's not personal. I'm not doing it because I'm some stuck up snob and think I'm too better. That's not it at all. Right? It's just, I came to the conclusion that there's one place I'm going to focus on. That's Many Things Dave McRae on Facebook. I leave that open. That doesn't mean I still get like 10 messages a day on there. The best thing is to keep it short and sweet. And those are the messages that I can probably get back to. There's some people that message me, their heart's in the right place. I love you guys. You guys are amazing. I always try to read everything, but just know that sometimes when you write something really long, your heart's in the right place and you're like, and you're excited and you want to share something with me. That's totally cool and totally awesome. But I just don't have the time to read something that's so long and give it the attention that it deserves. So it's not personal, but my DMs on Instagram, yeah, I turned them off because I was just getting too many. And I felt bad. I felt bad getting back to, Bob, but not getting back to John, or getting back to Bob, Stephen, and Lucy, but not getting back to Tim, Janet, and Carol. Whatever. I felt bad. So I just have to be honest with you, okay? But it's not personal. And again, I'm not saying I get like 40 messages every day, all day. I'm just saying on average, it was like that. And it was like, holy shit. People were excited that I was on Instagram, and a lot of people use Instagram and they want to share things. And that's amazing. That's amazing. But it's just hard to give the same amount of attention to everybody. Short and sweet is always the best. It's like that in the comment section. I've had people like in the comment, in the YouTube comments section that will sometimes, like, their heart's in the right place, and they'll sometimes write this really long, like 6 or 7 paragraph thing. And I can't get back. I mean, it's just too much. I mean, I'd be there all day, responding, and then they'll respond with something as equal. And it's like, I'm not here to have a conversation. Like, I can't do that. It's not personal. It's not personal. But short and sweet, many things, Dave McRae. Might take me a bit to get back to you, but I always do my best there because it's just easier. I don't have to worry about so many. All right. Super chat comes in from, who else we got here? Let's see here. We got JDead00. I think that's what that is. Sends in $9.99. Thank you very much, buddy. Appreciate that. Oh, by the way, for those of you that have just tuned in, at the beginning of the show today, I had these glasses on. Woo! Yes, hello. I should have done the whole show like this, but when I got into it, would have been quite distracting if I had decided to do the whole show like this. So so I didn't, but you can go back and watch the first 5 minutes, and that's what I'm doing. Says, hey, bud, thanks for the great content you give us. Well, thank you for tuning in. If you didn't tune in, I wouldn't be giving you content. I would love to see you have the guys from the Lost River Drive-In channel on yours sometime. I've never heard of them. It would be an interesting collaboration for sure. I've never heard of the Lost River Drive-In. I'll be honest with you, I've never heard of them, so maybe they're great guys and maybe they'd be amazing. I don't do a lot of collabs, and the reason for that is because I'm picky with who I collab with. For me, it really is about not every personality meshes well. I'm very high energy. I'm very polished and I have a sort of a theatrical, high energy presentation. So whenever I collab with somebody, I always like to make sure that they can at least meet that. I mean, they don't have to be me, but there are some people that have reached out to me and I've had to kind of say, and I try to be diplomatic about it, but it's just, I appreciate the offer and I appreciate the interest, but I'm not looking to do a collaboration with somebody where I'm carrying 95% of the show. It just doesn't, there's nothing in it for me. I would rather just do the show solo, so collabs are not something that I'm usually open to doing. It would really depend. Again, I know that might come across as arrogant to some. I don't mean that. People who do YouTube know exactly what I'm talking about. But I don't know who they are. Maybe they're awesome dudes. I have no idea who they are. So I'll have to check them out. I'm always open. You never know. Andrew Stevens sends in $5, says, I personally think they should end right here. I'd be okay with that. Because I would be concerned they would fail in a follow-up from this film. Totally. And it's always possible, right? I mean, what are they going to do? Like, we definitely know the avenues for which they can go. We definitely know, there's so many different options. I suspect they're hinting at a Winston Zeddemore funded, take it under the wings, almost like a president of the organization. He's the president of the organization, right? And he's going to start opening a Ghostbusters, like a franchise or something, where you have them like fire departments or police stations in and around the city. There's different Ghostbuster, places. And he's like I have a feeling that might be a direction for which they're going. How or if Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray fit into that, I don't know. Don't expect Zeddemore, Venkman, and Stans to suddenly be suiting up again and running through the streets of New York in an hour and 40-minute movie busting ghosts. It's over, guys. It's over. Okay? It's over. All right? Now, that doesn't mean that they might not have a role in the movie, like a cameo or, whatever, sure. But this was a passing of the torch. Literally, well, not literally, but you know what I mean? Figuratively, philosophically, right? Emotionally, right? This was that passing of the torch, So, like Winston Zeddemore is in a position in his life now where he can do this. That's why he's done this. He's bought the fire hall. He's bought Ecto One because he can do this. He's rich. He's wealthy. He's worked hard. He can give back now in this way. But he's not going to be suiting up and chasing ghosts. That's not what he's going to do. That's not what that end credit scene is about. Not in my estimation, right? This is about setting the stage for the future. And he's going to do that. And that's really cool that somebody who wasn't one of the original Ghostbusters, who just came on board because he needed a job, right? Hey, listen, if there's a steady paycheck involved, I'll believe everything you want, or, I'll believe anything you tell me. You know what I mean? He needed a job. He was out of work. He needed a job. He's like, busting ghosts? Sure, why not? You know what I mean? And so that guy, not the original three guys, not Ray, no. Winston Zeddemore, the guy from, he just comes on board last minute kind of thing to help out the guys. And he's the one that's going to give back. You're like, that's a very poetic, really cool sort of thing. Really cool sort of thing. So, really love that. Really love that. Joe Smyjohn Jr. follows up with $5, says, I sent it in a reply to your nostalgia video after I first saw Ghostbusters Afterlife because they had a behind the scenes trailer for Scream 5. Oh, that's cool. I didn't see that. Not here. No, the trailers for us were, what were the trailers? We had, what were the trailers? There were a couple of trailers. Spider-Man Far From Home, Uncharted with Tom Holland as well. And there was one other trailer. I can't remember. There was one other trailer. There was the Spider-Man Far From Home, No Way Home, I guess it's called. No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home, Uncharted, and there was one other trailer, and I forget what it was. But there was like 5,721 commercials. That's cool. I didn't, is it on YouTube? If it's on YouTube, Joe, I will check it out, my man. I will check it out. Scared Straight Production says, hey Dave, what's the best mic for ADR? Condenser mic or a dynamic? And did you ever have to put the girls in your studio to read some lines? Well, for ADR, if you're going into a studio, it's probably a condenser microphone. But the important thing is, and no, I did not, by the way. I did not. Adrian Ancona, our it was Top Gun. Entertainment Wizard says Top Gun. You're right. It was Top Gun. Thank you. It was. Were you in the theater with us? You were sneakily in there. Yes. No, it was. It was. You're absolutely right. It was Top Gun. Yep, that's right. No, I didn't have to bring them into the studio to do it. Adrian Ancona, our sound recordist and boom operator, captured their sound flawlessly, which was great. I mean, that's usually what you get when you hire pros. So that was great. But if you're going into a professional recording studio to do some ADR, you likely will be recording into either a Neumann U87 or a Sennheiser 416 or even Audio-Technica 4050 or some high end. Like I have in my booth over here, I have an Audio-Technica 4050, which is what I record my voiceovers on. I actually don't sit here to do my voiceover work. This is just for YouTube. I sit here to edit, but I go in my booth in there and it opens up a little bit, and there's that's where I have a screen in there and all that stuff. So it's a condenser microphone. Like for example, I believe the breathing that Nick Castle did for Halloween 18 and Halloween Ends was recorded on the Neumann U87, which is one of the top condenser microphones in the business. So, but what's more important. Not that it's not important to what you record on. It is, but it's usually going to be like a 416 or a U87 or some sort of condenser microphone. But what is more important when you record ADR is how you mix it, right? How you EQ it and how you mix it, so it makes it sound like it's in the same space. Because when you do ADR, if you're doing ADR in like a diner, right? Like there's this diner scene and you need some pickup. Well, obviously the natural ambient sound of the diner and a lot of the sound design of the diner is mixed in post anyway. But it's to make sure that the quality of the voice sounds like it's in the same space as the other dialogue that you recorded while you were on set. That's the real trick. Because there's been many times, especially in older films, they're pretty good at mastering it now. But if you watch movies from the 70s or the 80s or, even the 90s a little bit that have some ADR, you can usually tell, oh, that sounds just a little different, just not quite in the same space, but it's good enough. It's good enough that I believe it. You know what I mean? So, and that comes down to the audio engineer who's mixing and mastering and EQing that, right? To really make it sound like it's in the same space as the rest of the dialogue. But it would be a condenser mic for sure. Dynamic mics, I don't think it would be a dynamic mic condenser mic is my experience. Whenever I've done ADR, and I've done ADR for pickups for, a variety of things in my life, I'm usually always recording on, like a 416 which isn't, or usually it's like the U87 or something like that. So, but if you're doing it on your own, if you have just a good, quality condenser mic, record it. Where you record your audio is just as, if not more important than what you record your audio on. Now, what you record your audio on is vitally important, yes, but don't record ADR in the bathroom. Don't record ADR on your phone. Don't record ADR, while you're on the subway. I mean, get into a professional recording space. If you don't have a professionally treated recording space like I do here at home, you can use your closet and leave your clothes in the closet. The clothes are great sound absorbers and can act as like soundproof foam. A lot of people do that as well. There's tons of YouTube videos you can watch on this and stuff. But make sure you're recording in a relatively dead space area, and you know how to mix and master, because you don't want it to sound like this. So I was just downtown and this guy was like, and there's too much bass, and it's like, there's too much bass, too much, you know what I mean? That doesn't sound like it's recorded in the same space. You know what I mean? That's the real trick. It can be tricky. Joe follows up with another super chat, says, I haven't found the same behind the scenes trailer, and I had in the theater, but the official teaser is on YouTube. Okay, cool. Well, I will. Yeah, no, it wasn't in ours. We were in the IMAX here in Canada, and the trailers were Top Gun, Uncharted, and No Way Home. And then the movie began, and it was great. And if you're just joining me, literally, my girlfriend and I don't mean that like in a hyperbolic way, like literally we had the IMAX theater, not a small theater, an IMAX theater with like 300 seats completely to ourselves. And it was weird. I mean, it's not like I live out in the boonies. It's like, what? Like, this is what? It was so weird. I had, as I said, I purchased the tickets at 9:00 in the morning. And because it's the IMAX and it's assigned seating, you were able to pick your seats. And all the seats were not picked. And I was like, oh, well, it's only 9 a.m., right? So I picked the 2 seats right in the middle of the theater. I was like, this is great. By the time we get to the theater at 4:00 in the afternoon for our 4:30 show, we walk into the IMAX theater and we laughed. We're like, oh my God, there's nobody in here. Like literally nobody. I don't mean like, there's nobody in here, but there's only like, 1 or 2. No, there's literally nobody. And we're like, well, people got to come in eventually. We sat down. My girlfriend went to the bathroom. She came back and we're sitting there and the ads are playing and then the lights go down and the trailers start. And of course, it's IMAX. So it's like, you know what I mean? We can hardly hear each other, think or hear ourselves think. And hear ourselves think? We could, whatever the fucking saying is. And so it was like, and then we looked around. We're like, there's nobody in here. Literally nobody for the whole movie. Nobody. That's the first time that's ever happened to me. I've been in theaters where there's been like 1 or 2 other people. That happened to me with the first Insidious movie. The first Insidious movie I saw in the theater right downtown Toronto. And there was like me and like 4 other people. And that was a matinee too. But that's Insidious, right? I mean, but Ghostbusters Afterlife, 4:30 on a Wednesday, you expect a few people in there. Now, again, I mean, there's many theaters in this area, so I'm sure it was doing well somewhere else at that time. But in this particular IMAX, which is a huge IMAX, nobody, just the 2 of us. It was great. It was fucking great. It's never happened to me before, ever. And IMAX, too. I'll never forget that. That's really cool. Let's see. Dan-tastic sends in a very generous super chat. Thank you, Dan. Sends in $19.99. Says, the Peter and Dana scene should have been in the middle of the movie to ease the tension like Ray calls them after he was called. Winston Solo, now he is Nick Fury. Love it. Yeah, they finally can rest now as the story moves. Yeah, you know what? I could see that. I mean, I could see, again, I think it was really preserving the like, even though we knew they were going to be in it, I think it was really just all about preserving the integrity of the surprise. You know what I mean? But if you didn't know there was a mid-credit scene or even an end credit scene, I have no doubt to this day there are tons of people that don't even know that Sigourney Weaver was in the movie. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's different when you're, for example, it's me, Billy. Right? that scene when Sam is dragged into the basement of the house and she's locked in that room and she discovers her grandmother's actually alive, that actually was going to be an end credit scene. We were going to put that at the very end of the credits. But I said to Bruce, I said, well, if this was like a major studio release, we probably wouldn't even have any say. We probably wouldn't have had any say over it anyway. But if this was like a major studio release and, like maybe, but it's for YouTube, it's for online. And when you look at people's attention spans and people's analytics, when people get to the end of It's Me, Billy right now and the credits begin, there's a gigantic, sharp drop off. Nobody watched the credits. I mean, if your name is in the credits, like you're part of the Indiegogo campaign, you'll probably sit and watch to see your name. But if you're not, nobody watches credits to me. I do, but a lot of people don't stick around to watch. And listen, I was watching end credits to movies back in the 90s before there was this thing called end credit scenes. Okay. I mean, there was a couple way back then, but I'm talking about like before it was made popular by Marvel. I was doing that all the time. Bruce and I loved watching all the names and all the different departments and things like that, but that's also because that's what we wanted to do with our lives, right? So it made sense. And there were many times Bruce and I would be the last in the theater and you could see the ushers standing at the side wanting to clean the theater and waiting for us to like, oh, fuck. Because they like to clean while the credits would roll, right? You know what I mean? But they couldn't clean while we were sitting there, So I'm sure we were annoying to those people, but I guess they could have done that, yeah. But I think it was just to preserve it, But like I said, I bet you there's a lot of people that don't even know that. It was fun though. Come on. You were like, it was good. It was good, and it's like. It's just like a skit. It's like a Saturday Night Live skit. It's like Sigourney Weaver and Bill Murray do a little skit recreating that scene from the original film on like Saturday Night Live. Like that's all it is. And that's all it's supposed to be. That's all we're going to get today. They're over 70 for God's sakes. That's it, folks. That's it. We cannot go home again. It's been too long. Unfortunately, it's been too long. Let's just be happy that we got the Ghostbusters on screen together, shooting fucking their proton packs at Gozer, because like I said to you, for those of you that are just joining me, if Ghostbusters 3 had come out in the 90s, there's a very high probability it wouldn't have even revolved around those guys. Not a lot of people know that. Because there were serious attempts to bring on Chris Farley and Will Smith and write the next generation of Ghostbusters. Because by that time, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, they were already well into their 40s, right? So they were looking to like the next, already in the 90s. So even if we did get a Ghostbusters 3 in the 90s, we may not have seen them on screen together, suited up, shooting the proton packs. And so ironically, the fact that we were able to wait 30 years and get that, hey, that makes me happy. I think that's really cool. And yeah, the Nick Fury thing, that's cool, man. That's cool. Yeah, he's sort of, there is kind of that vibe there, isn't there? There's kind of that vibe, and I really like that. I'm digging it. I like that vibe. I do. JDead00 sends in 499, says, do you believe in the paranormal? Any paranormal experiences? And yeah, I understand what you meant by, collaborations, was just giving my boys a little shout out. For sure, yeah. Well, I've never heard of them, but shout out to them. I'm sure they do. Whatever they do over there, I'm sure they do an awesome job. Do I believe in the paranormal? Well, I do have paranormal experience, yes. It would take me too long to get into it here, but there's a lot of people that watch me that know that I've been working on a feature-length screenplay. I haven't touched on it in a while. It needs some polishing, but I started writing a screenplay about 16 years ago, based on an experience I had in my second year of college in the year 2000. So that's going back 21 years now. That's hard to believe. I can't believe that 21 years has passed since then. But it was an experience that dealt with like an abandoned farmhouse, and it sounds a little cliche, but it's really anything but. It's not a horror movie. It's more of a thriller drama. At the end of the day, it's more intelligent, more cerebral, maybe a little more highbrow, I guess. At least that's the way that I want it to be, but still very entertaining and scary. It's called Port Robinson Road. That's the title of the film that I'd love to do. So yes, I do. When I believe in the paranormal, I've had enough experiences in my life that I do believe that something survives the death process. But what that something is, I don't know. I don't claim to know. You know, I think that these ghost hunting shows and all that kind of stuff don't do us really any favors. Like, they're fun to watch, but at the end of the day, they're sensationalized. A lot of it is bullshit for the sake of entertainment. They make up shit for the sake of entertainment. They have to do that. I can tell you right now, having experience with it, ghost hunting 99% of the time is boring as fuck and you capture nothing. So the fact that these shows capture something extravagantly amazing every single episode should tell you right there that it's, you know, bullshit. If you want to do it seriously and you're not trying to entertain a show and get paid. But I do have enough experience that I believe that something does survive the process of death. Some form of consciousness survives. Our consciousness, our awareness. For how long, I don't know. But there is something. It's a very peculiar and interesting thing. Do I believe in ghosts like Ghostbuster ghosts, or like, you know, woo, and, you know, and ghosts can hurt you and kill you, and demons and things like that? Not really. You know, I'm more thinking about it on a more of a where does our consciousness go? You know, and is there another plane of existence? Is there another dimension? I don't believe in an afterlife in the religious sense, in the, you know, theological sense, in the Christian sense. I mean, every religion has their own version of an afterlife, you know, and every religion claims theirs is the real one. And it's like, you know, okay. You know, I think if there is an afterlife, I think it probably doesn't, whatever it is, doesn't give a fuck who you worship at the end of the day. So I like to think about it more on a planes of existence, dimensional stuff. And, you know, if we do come back, reincarnation is fascinating, because if consciousness can survive, and whatever consciousness is, whatever the energy is, it can then, if consciousness can come back and, you know, go into another human being, I mean, that's interesting. You know, that's really interesting to me. But do I believe that when we die, we wake up and we're on a white cloud with our friends and family who have also died and we live happily ever after at the pearly gates? No. Now, there's no evidence to suggest that isn't what happens, but there's no evidence, no concrete, objective, verifiable evidence to suggest that is what happens. So, anyways, so it's fascinating. It's a bit of I know that's probably not the answer you were hoping for, but it's a topic that is, I am very fascinated in. And it's a topic that I totally can have fun with and watch a spooky Ghostbusters movie, like, you know, whatever, right? But I really appreciate movies that are more nuanced and more intelligent, like The Others or things like that, where it's like, oh, like that's kind of how you know what I mean? Like, that's really cool shit to me. So anyway, thanks for the super chat. I appreciate that. Joe Smijon Jr. sends in another $10 super chat. Thank you, buddy. Really appreciate your generous support today. Says, you got lucky to have the theater to yourselves. Oh, 100% lucky. I wish I had that the first time I saw H-18 in the theater. I couldn't hear the movie over the talkers behind me. Well, again, I mean, as you know, the first time I saw H-18 in the theater was at the world premiere in Toronto. So there was probably about 2,000 people. Most regular movie theaters hold about 200, 300 people, right? This was a theater that was, you know, it's a theatrical theater, like a stage theater. You know, they have plays. It's the Winter Garden and Elgin Theater in Toronto. So there was they had an upper deck and a balcony. And there was it was like 2,000 people in there. It was crazy. Very fun experience. I don't recall a theater experience I've had where too many people have talk. I'm not afraid to tell anybody to shut the fuck up. I don't do it immediately. I always give a bit of, you know, a grace period, because maybe they're, you know, but if it goes on, I'm just like, yeah, you need to shut up. Like, I didn't pay to hear you. It still dumbfounds me to this day that there are people that lack so much objective awareness that they actually will talk during a movie. Like, you're not in your fucking living room. Shut up. It blows my mind. I don't mind if you're yapping or talking during the commercials or whatever. But when the trailers start, that to me is like, it's movie time. It's movie time. I'll let it go if it's through the trailers sometimes, something like that. But if that thing fucking starts during the movie, nah, it's done. Let's see. Matthew Ferreira sends in $4.99. Thank you, Matthew. Says, have you considered doing a commentary for some of the Hellraiser films? A commentary for me on the Hellraiser films on my channel? No, I would never do that. For Two Dudes and Some Bullshit, maybe that's what you're talking about. Maybe. I'm not a big Hellraiser fan. I like the first one, but I haven't seen it in years. So, but maybe we do the first one, maybe. But I wouldn't do that on my channel. On like me just doing it. Nick sends in $5, says, Dave, speaking of end credits, the very first one that I saw was from Airplane. Not sure if you've seen it, but it's there and it's hilarious. Oh, I've seen it. Oh yeah. There was always, listen, end credit scenes, they existed years ago, but they weren't, it wasn't like a thing, where it's like, no, you gotta stay, because no, it was here and there, every now and then. And if you happen to catch it, you caught it. I mean, the internet didn't exist back then. And it was just kind of the thing where if you happen to catch it, you caught it, they put it in there as kind of like, well, if somebody sees it, they see it. If they don't, they don't. Right. I mean, even at the end of Masters of the Universe from 1987, there's an end credit scene. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's an end credit scene where Frank Langella's Skeletor comes out of the lava or whatever it is, and he's like, I'll be back, or whatever. It's like he never came back. But, that happens at the end of the credits of Masters of the Universe too. So, they did exist here and there, but it was never, it wasn't the thing it is today, thanks to Marvel, right? And it's fun. It's a great way to get people to stay through the credits. That's for sure. That is for sure. Pumpkin Cake says, Dave, I completely disagree with you. You don't need to rehash an original movie just to get things back on track, because watching these movies back to back, the similarity nods are just jarring. Well, you're not supposed to watch them back to back. You're supposed to watch Ghostbusters 2 in between that, because Ghostbusters 2 is also canon. For those of you that may not know that. It actually is canon in that. And although I agree with the principle of what you're talking about, I agree with the principle that you don't need to do that. Of course not. However, when you're thinking about it from a studio perspective, and you're thinking about it from dollars, and you're thinking about it from the franchise perspective on how much hoopla is around the franchise, how much, I feel like I was going to sneeze. How much hoopla is around the franchise, how much, where Ghostbusters 2016 rubbed a lot of people the wrong way and all that kind of stuff. They also wanted to pay tribute to Harold Ramis as well. So they wanted to tell a story with Harold Ramis, using him as sort of the catalyst that drives the rest of the narrative. It's a marketing ploy. Yes, in principle, what you're talking about, they don't need to do that, okay? But at the end of the day, it is a smart, creative decision to do that. They did it with The Force Awakens. They did it with Ghostbusters, because of where the franchise is at that moment, where the temperament and where the sort of the temperature is in the world of Ghostbusters fandom, in the world of Ghostbusters, in the series, in the franchise. And whenever because it's us that are going to be taking the children to the movies. Okay, 12-year-olds are not going to go watch Ghostbusters or The Force Awakens. They don't care. It's us, I don't know how old you are, but it's us, me over 40, it's us 40-year-old men and women who are going to be taking our 10 and 12-year-old children to the movie theater because we want to watch it. They want to tap into us. That's who they want to get. Because the 12-year-olds have no emotional, nostalgic connection. They have no reference point. Generally speaking, that doesn't mean that they haven't seen the movie or they didn't grow up with it because they have a good dad that showed them. I'm talking generally here, right? They don't get it. They don't understand it. It doesn't mean anything to them. It means nothing to them. So they're focusing and they're targeting on us, the 40-year-old men and women who are like, we got to go. We got to bring our kids. And then they get our kids in there and all that kind of stuff. And it sets the stage for the future. Yes, of course, they could have made a movie again where it wasn't Gozer. It was somebody completely different. They didn't rehash anything. Sure, they could have done that. But there's good evidence. They have good evidence to suggest that it would not have been the film that it was. They tried to do that with Ghostbusters 2016. I know what you're thinking. No. That was just woke bullshit. No, hang on a sec. That's a different movie. You got 4 women, talented. The movie's competently made, right? It's directed by Paul Feig, who directed Bridesmaids and Spy. The movie is not as bad as people say it is. It's just that what happened is that people, and I like hearing people like Cody Leach and others saying, you know what? It's not as bad as people think it is. It's not great. I don't like it because of this, but it's not as bad because it isn't. What happened is that people saw that they were remaking Ghostbusters with 4 women, and because of the climate we live in, it was like, but just so you know, that was the point of me telling you back in the 90s, you might not have got them in the 90s either. No, it may not. And by the way, they were thinking about bringing on women in the 90s. Just so you know. I'm not kidding. That was my whole point by saying we may not have gotten Ghostbusters in the 90s the way that you would have wanted to have gotten it anyway. Because I believe it was Chris Farley, Will Smith they were thinking about. They wanted 2 women in there as well. Who knows who that would have been at that time, right? You know, but that's what they were thinking. And then there were other options as well. Okay, maybe not them, but how about... I'm just saying, yes, in principle of what you're saying is true, right? It is true. But there's reasons why they do this. And I think it is the correct approach to take. I think it is too much of a risk to not do that. I think it's too much of a risk for the studio to not use nostalgia and fan service to set the template, to set the stage, and then move forward from there. I think it is the right thing to do. 100%. You may not agree with it. You may not like it, and that's fair. But I believe it was the right creative decision to make. I agreed with it with The Force Awakens as well. It makes sense. Star Wars was dead. Star Wars was dead before The Force Awakens. Because what us little fanboys have to remember is that we live in a bubble. And this bubble is, it's not all about us. You know what I mean? It's about utilizing us to reach more broadly. That's what it's about. And it's a smart move to make. If they made a Ghostbusters Afterlife that was completely different, and it wasn't about Egon and it had the guys in there, but it was, they were kind of cameos like Ghostbusters 2016. It may have fared like 2016. It's entirely possible. Now, could they have done something different than Gozer? Sure. But why not utilize it? And you know what? It's made bank at the box office. It's made bank. People are really enjoying it. I really enjoyed it. So I believe it was the right creative decision to make. But in principle, what you're saying, is it possible they could have done something completely different and it's still been really good? Well, of course. Yes, of course. Of course. But I agree with not taking that risk and taking this risk instead, because you're going to have a winner here. You're going to have a winner here. There's a much higher probability that you're going to have a winner here to set the stage. We need to set the stage. That's what The Force Awakens was. The Force Awakens made over $2 billion. It's one of the highest grossing films in motion picture history. Last Jedi, $1.3 billion or $1.6 billion. It made like nearly $1 billion less. It's like, what happened? What happened, right? So it's all about who takes the football now. You deliver something familiar, you deliver nostalgia, you get us on board like, that was good, guys. That was fun. That was good. Okay, all right. Now where are we going to go? You know what I mean? And that's what it's all about. And that's what they did. And I think it's the right decision to make. However, like I said earlier in the show, I don't know if you were there when I said this, if you can't continue to do this, you can't deliver another Ghostbusters movie that's just a rehash. Like, you don't want to make the next Ghostbusters movie like Ghostbusters 2. You don't want to do that. That's too much. You've already set the stage. You've already done that, right? But you don't want to do what The Last Jedi did, which was completely negate the setup and just be avant-garde for the sake of it and subverting expectations. It's like, no, you can't do that either. You know, you have to go with what's been set, but now you deliver a fresh story from a fresh perspective, but you're honoring what has been set, right? Anyway, that's how I feel about it. Let's see here. We got another super chat comes in from Andrew Stevens. Oh, I got to get going. Thank you, Andrew. Says, this remark is from Darren. Was your experience like Stance from the OG Ghostbusters lying in bed? Stance. Yeah. Yes, kind of was. I mean, I had to be careful because my girlfriend was sitting beside me, but yes, that essentially was what was going on. That is exactly what was going on there. Yeah, for sure. That's so funny. Did I miss any others? Nick. No, I got Nick. Okay, let me see. I think I've got all the super chats. I don't think I've missed any, if I'm not mistaken. I don't believe so. I don't think so. So I think I have got them. So, all right. Yes, folks, that is going to do it for me. That is going to do it for me here on episode 202 of McRae Live. Oh, Joe gets one in hard into the paint. He says, sends in $5. Thank you, buddy. He says, oh, by the way, it was 50-50 actor in green screen suit and CGI. There was no deep fake for Egon CGI. Well, they did a hell of a job. Well, you know, deep fake is sort of like CGI. I mean, it's a form of that, but I get what you're saying. CGI, they did a hell of a job. And yeah, for sure, it would have been an actor, for sure. They did a remarkable job. He looked exactly like Egon Spengler, and I was thrilled with it. I thought it was the way they honored him is the way they should have honored and the way they should have ended The Rise of Skywalker. Yes, get rid of the disembodied voices and actually have them all show up to help Rey. I mean, listen, that would not have saved the movie for some people. Again, like I said, I actually enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker. I don't think it's amazing. I just enjoyed it for what it was. But that certainly, I think those who loathe, and I can't believe there are people out there that loathe The Rise of Skywalker more than they loathe The Last Jedi. I don't understand you. I just don't get it. The Last Jedi is a fucking shitbox. I just don't understand it. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Anyway, that being said, I don't think it would have saved The Rise of Skywalker for some people, but I think it would have at least made it a little more palpable leaving the theater, perhaps. I don't know, a little more palpatineable. Anyways, all right, that is going to do it for me. Like I said, episode 202. Let me throw on these glasses again. You guys are amazing. You know you are. Thank you to all the super chat questions that came in today, the non-super chat questions as well, the few I got to. And thank you to my moderators, of course, Frank Riker, Tab of the Shore, Darren Sands, Chris Baber. You guys are amazing. You know you are. And happy Thanksgiving to my American brothers and sisters south of the border. Eat tons of turkey, eat tons of stuffing, watch planes, trains, and automobiles. Get fat, eat that pumpkin pie, and just wallow in fatness on the couch while watching planes, trains, and automobiles. Just that's all you have to do. Like, that's literally all you have to do. All right, that's it. That's your goal for this Thursday. And of course, watch your football, because I know you guys like to watch football. Have a great rest of your Thanksgiving. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and I will talk to you soon. In the meantime and in between time. Cheers!